Okay, 78A. That's 7, 8, 9 lines from the bottom. A new Mishnah in sight. So, if you don't like the next few minutes, don't worry. Restart button coming up soon. That's right. Okay, so in the middle of talking about this guy who's a treifa, this guy who's fatally wounded, he's going to die. So, to kill him, one's not liable, at least liable in capital punishment. Now, sorry. So we said in the first line on about 10 lines down, V'amar Rava. No, earlier, sorry. V'amar Rava. Eidim shehi'idu b'treifa. So you have witnesses that testify on a treifa that, let's call him Reuven. Reuven the treifa. So Reuven the treifa killed somebody and 2 witnesses testify about him. Now, those 2 witnesses are found to be Eidim Zomen. They're found to be conspiring witnesses. Ein Neharagin. They don't get killed because they can't get what they tried to give to him. He's already going to die. So they can't really kill him. And if they can't get what they're giving, which is part of the section of the Torah called Adam's Omen, that's not considered a valid testimony. Okay. Eidei Treifa Shehuzmu. Now, what if they're Reuben and Shimon are both treifas? Yeah, they become friends on social media or something. He found another treifa to be friends with, right? So Reuben and Shimon are both treifas. Now they go testify on somebody. About a third person, a regular guy. Not so regular, but about a third guy who killed somebody. So these 2 treifas testify, these 2 fatally wounded people testify on someone, on Reuben who killed, on Levi who killed Yehuda. So now they become Eidim Zomen. The 2 witnesses who are fatally wounded, they are found to be conspiring witnesses. So then we say Neharagin. So they do get killed because they tried to kill somebody. So they get what they tried to give, even though they're, they themselves are already going to die anyways, but they still are going to get that punishment. Rav Ashi argues, and he says, Afilu Eidi Treifa Shehuzmu Ein Neharagin Lefi She'enan Bezome Zomen. Okay. So Rav Ashi says that generally we've said so far until Rav Ashi that if you can't get what you're giving to somebody else, so that is a problem in your testimony. It's not a complete testimony, and therefore we're not going to give you that punishment. Says Rav Ashi, what happens if the conspiring witnesses, so let's say you have the first pair of witnesses, I don't know, pair A, they go and testify about somebody. They are Eidei Treifa. They're both, pair A are both fatally wounded. So now, classically, pair B comes and falsifies pair A. Says, you pair A, you couldn't have been there. You were with us in New York. How could you say you were in LA when you saw someone kill somebody? So now, but what happens now if pair C comes and falsifies pair B? So pair A tried to kill somebody. They were found to be false witnesses. Those witnesses are both fatally wounded. So pair B comes now, and right, they falsify pair A. Now when pair C comes and falsifies pair B, so that really shows you that that pair A should be killed, right? Yeah. So now, right? So pair A, once again, pair A testified, pair B falsified them, and therefore now pair B tried to kill pair A. Pair C comes and falsifies pair B, and pair A does not get killed, but pair B tried to kill the 2 fatally wounded witnesses. Now, because you can't give pair B what they tried to give to pair A, because pair A was fatally wounded, so therefore, since you can't, that whole thing doesn't work. Says Rav Ashi, that's called Einam Bezome Zomen. It's another pair that's added. Since you can't give, if pair C would come and falsifies pair B, and pair B tried to kill pair A, but pair A was going to die anyways. So since you can't give it to pair B, therefore even that original testimony is not going to be accepted. Okay. Now, veering onto animals. So I had no good joke to introduce you this morning. Sorry. So Yeah. Good morning, Jared. So the Amarava short treifa shahara chayiv. So now you have an animal who's fatally wounded. So got some wound, and I think within 12 months it's going to be with us no longer. So the Amarava short treifa shahara chayiv. So even if it's an ox that's a treifa that kills, so it's chayiv. It's going to get killed. The shor shel adam treifa shahara pater. But the ox of a person who's a treifa who kills, pater. Why? My timer. Why, if the person, the human being, is a treifa, he's fatally wounded? The general rule is if your ox kills somebody, then we kill the ox. Who cares that you're fatally wounded? Go take care of your ox. If it's a wild ox, so we should kill the ox. Why do we care that you're fatally wounded? So because my time, Amar Kra, Hashor Yisakel, the wild ox that kills somebody, it gets stoned. And then it has this 3 words, Vegam Bailabumas. And also the owner should be killed. Really means that he's going to have to pay. So what does it mean, Vegam Bailabumas? So that the original Mishnah so many months ago told us that we compare the two, the ox to the person. So Rav is saying we're comparing it for this also. Kol heichad de Karinan Bey Vegam Bailabumas, Karinan Bey Hashor Yisakel. The whole time, as long as you can talk about a person and say he will be killed, then his ox would be killed. But since the person's a treifa, he's going to be dying anyways. So we're not going to be liable for killing him, or really more so, he won't be liable for. Right. The person who's a treifa we saw earlier, unless you do it right in front of the court, so we're not able to kill you because the witnesses that testify about you, the fatally wounded person, that you killed somebody, they can't be falsified. So since the owner is not able to have regular capital punishment, so too his animal won't either, through a comparison between the animal and the person. Yeah. Rav Ashi Amar, afilu short treifa, nami shaharag pater. Rav Ashi says, even if the ox, arguing on Rav earlier, even if the ox itself is a treifa, is fatally wounded, and it kills somebody, it's also going to be exempt from getting killed. Why? My timer, Kevin the ilu bailam havaptiri, shor nami pater. He also understands this comparison that just like when if the owner would be fatally wounded, he would be exempt, so too the animal, since they're compared in the Torah, so too the shor, the ox, would also be exempt. Okay. Then we had this idea of either a dog or a snake that you incite on somebody else. So whether you incite your dog or your snake, so the first opinion said you're going to be exempt. But if you take the snake, I guess the snake, and you put it to the person, and then that bites him, and then it bites him, that Rabbi Yehuda said you're obligated, and the Chachamim said you are pater. Okay, so if you incite them, sounds like everyone agrees you're exempt. But if you go and place it on the person's arm, let's say, and then the animal bites them, Rabbi Yehuda is strict. He says you're going to be killed. That's called murder. And the rabbis say you're going to be exempt from capital punishment. So, Amar of Acha bar Yaakov, Kishetimtza lomar l'divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So, according to Rabbi Yehuda that says you're obligated, it sounds like you have to say Aras Nachash Bein Shinav who omed. The venom of the snake is there between its teeth, ready to go. Lefikach makish. Therefore, if you go, or mashach really, if you bite, therefore if you go and you put the snake on the person's arm, since the venom is right there, it's like stabbing somebody. It's equivalent to stabbing somebody. It's killing. The venom is right there between its teeth, and you put it on. So that's why Rabbi Yehuda says a person will get killed. He's considered a murderer. However, l'divrei chachamim, what do they hold? So aras nachash me'atzim humaki. Sounds like they understand that it's not as readily available on its teeth. It has to a little bit cough it up. It has to sort of regurgitate it. I'm not sure exactly how it works. Therefore, it's not considered your koach. It's not considered it came from your force. It's one step removed. So lefikach nachash beskila v'hamakish pater. The snake will get killed. It'll get stoned. Funny image, stoning a snake. But okay. So how do you keep it still? I don't know. But you will be exempt. So I don't think they argue in terms of like practically like go look at the snake and find out where the venom is, but it sounds like some level of the snake regurgitates it, or it has to spit it up. Some level of venom of the snake is already there. So how do you view that? Do you view that as that's direct punishment, or that's indirect? That's direct murder or indirect murder? If to ask your local
Snake herpetologist.
Huh?
Herpetologist.
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 Well, Steve, I don't know where you got that from. 2 points, Steve. So okay, next. Throwing a stone or using your fist. So hamakis chaver bein evan bein be'egrov, whether you use a stone to hit your friend. I guess you're hitting him with a stone. I thought really you throw a stone at him. What is that? Stone means you throw it. Language sounds like you hit him with a stone. Could be that you know that. Probably that you hit him with a stone. Hamakis chaver bein be'evan bein be'egrov. Now, the amduhu lemisa. So we have to know like how strong was your punch. So it's interesting. Bezin has to know this. Either they have a doctor on staff, or they themselves were trained, or so if they evaluate.
Punch one of the judges.
They got to go to the consul.
Yeah, don't punch one of the judges. A bad political move. So the amdu lemisa, if you go. If you go do lemisa, if you go and evaluate that they evaluate him, that it was a deathly punch, and now what happened? The guy who they thought was going to die because of the punch, they hikil mimashahaya. He actually improved. He started getting better. But after he got better, he got worse. So now what happens? Chayiv. The first opinion says you're chayiv. At the end of the day, they evaluated you, and there was a deathly punch. The fact that he got better in between doesn't change that. So Rabbi Nechemia Omer Pater, he says no, you're going to be exempt. Why? Shit raglayim ledavar. Raglayim ledavar always means there's some kind of previous presumption over here, meaning the reason why a person died is not because of the hit. And I'll show you. Look, he got better. So there's reason to assume that your punch wasn't a deathly punch, and therefore when the guy dies, we say it's much more indirect death. So 2 opinions: if they evaluate a guy for death and he gets better then dies, do you go after now? Oh, he got better, and therefore you're not a murderer, or do you say you still are a murderer? Okay. So sorry. Tanar Rabbanan. So it says a brisa. Es zu darish Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Nechemia expounds the following verse. The verse is talking about someone who punches somebody, and then the guy is im yakum v'izhalik b'chutz. He gets up and he's walking outside al mishanto on his stick. V'nika hamaka, the wound, v'nika, it gets better. So then, when it gets better, then you only pay for the financial damage you caused him. There's a whole bunch of financial damages: his medical expenses, his time off from work, the embarrassment he has for his wound. So those things. Okay. So, turning the page, so now it says the Gemara, like, what's the Torah telling me? Would you actually have thought I mean, it sounds like the Torah is telling you, you should know, by the way, if you hit him and he gets better, you only have to pay. We don't kill you. What would you have thought? You punch someone, he gets better, and then you would kill the guy? You're not a murderer. So what's it telling me? So Ella, it means like this. Zesha amdu lemisa. No, it's a guy who gave a deathly punch. He was evaluated and determined that it was deathly. And then v'hikim mashahaya. And then the guy got better. Ula'achar kach hichbiru meis. He got better. Sounds like walking around. And then he died. So that's Rabbi Nechemia says, you're pater, shehu pater. You're exempt. That's the case where you have to pay the damages. So it's not a case where you didn't kill a guy and you would think you have to kill. You would think the guy's a murderer. That makes no sense. Rather, you did give a deathly punch. However, he got better and then died. You're exempt for murder. And now all you have to pay is his medical expenses, his time off from work, those things. Okay, but that's only good for Rabbi Nechemia. The rabbis argue, and they say if you give a deathly punch, the fact that he got better and now he dies, you're still a murderer. So according to Rabbi Nechemia, it's an explicit verse that tells you not that way. Obviously, according to the Rabbanon, they're going to have to do something with this verse. So what do they do with this verse? We learn that we're going to have in one Amud two forms of prison. So we lock him up and we wait. So according to the Rabbanon, you lock him up. Now, why do you lock him up? You lock him up until you see if the guy dies or not. So if you give a deathly punch and you establish that it's deathly, you sort of hold him and wait until to see what happens. So that's what the verse is telling you that I think the verse tells you, yeah, that you hold him there until the guy gets better and then you let him go. But if not, then I guess you kill him. So you're holding him there to see what happens. So the guy shouldn't run away. Because if he runs away, then you can't catch him. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. So now, Rabbi Nechemia, it sounds like Rabbi Nechemia also agrees that you would hold the guy until to see what happens with the one he punched. But according to Rabbi Nechemia, where do you learn out this idea that you're sort of holding him back and guarding him until we see what happens with the person that he punched? How does he know that? We know there's someone called the Makosha Eitzim. He did something wrong. He violated Shabbos in some way. So it says there in Bamidbar Tesvav, in the 15th chapter, Ve'anichu oso b'mishmar. They placed him in a mishmar. I mean, not jail, but they placed him in a shomer. A shomer is a watchman. So they placed him in a holding cell. Yeah, I don't know. They placed him in a mishmar, a place where they could watch him. So there you see something in the Torah which they held him. So too from there you can learn to hear that you also hold the guy and you wait to see what happens. Okay. V'Rabbanan, why are you learning from this verse of when the guy killed somebody? Why don't you also learn from the case of the Mekoshesh? Rabbanan nami le'elfi mi Mekoshesh. Says the Gemara. No, Mekoshesh bar katalahu. The Mekoshesh was for sure a murderer. Just Moshe lo have yada katle. The Maila Fuke. Moshe didn't know which punishment to give him, but he's for sure a murderer. But this guy, we don't know if he's a murderer. That's why we're holding him back. We're waiting to see, is the guy he punched, did the guy die or the guy not die? Lo yadinan I barkatalahu ila barkatalahu. This guy, we don't know if he's a barkatalahu. We don't know if he's even a murderer or not. So therefore, you can't learn out from the parsha of the Makoshesh. That wouldn't be a good place to learn from. That's why they learn from the parsha itself, that you have to hold the guy and wait to see what happens. Rabbi Nechemia, he does learn from Makoshesh. So we're asking Rabbi Nechemia now, why don't you yalef mi megadev? So another part of the Torah in Vayikra about the one who blasphemed God. So it says there that they also, vayanichu b'mishmar. They also put him in this watching cell, and they held him. Now, yalef mi megadev lo have yada I barkatalahu. There you weren't sure if he deserves death or not, and you put him and you watched him. So sorry, that was an answer, no? That was an answer, no? Rabbi Nechemia, Yalev Mimegadev, learn out from the case of the blasphemer. De lo have yada I barkatalahu. Where are you?
It said Mishma?
No, not yet. Just the verse says Mishmar. I was like, yeah. So, according to Rabbi Nechemia, why do you learn out from the Mikoshesh? Why not? Sorry. According to Rabbi Nechemia, why do you learn from the Megadev, the blasphemer? De lo have yada I barkatalahu. V'chavshuhu. What's the answer? Why do you learn from the blasphemer?
Because he was liable for execution. So, but it can't be used as precedent.
It was an ad hoc decision.
And they didn't know whether he was.
One of a kind.
They didn't. Moshe didn't know if he was.
So that's good.
So it's the same case. So it is an answer because in this case also.
So why does he learn from there? He learns from our parsha. He doesn't learn from Megadev. Rabbi Nechemia yalef in Megadev lo haviyada ibar ketalahu.
I didn't know it hadn't been revealed that this
We're going to see later. Okay, it's going to come back to this. We didn't know if the Megadev is going to be liable or not. Okay, we'll come back to it in a second. The Chavshuv Rabbanon, according to the rabbis, a Megadev is a horosh. It was a horasha haisa. It was just a horasha, means it was only a decision for that time, but not a decision for all generations. Yeah, because they did it there on their own. They weren't yet commanded to go and put him in this watch cell and watch him. They did it on their own, and because it wasn't raining yet, that he's deserving of punishment. So we're going to see now. It wasn't raining yet what punishment this guy's going to get. So when they went and they put him in to watch him, it was not yet commanded that he's getting any kind of death penalty. So when they did it on their own. Therefore, you can't learn from there. That was like a one-time thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now Kedetanya, as the Brisa says, Yodehaya Moshe Rabbeinu Sham Mekoshish B'Misa. Moshe knew that the Mekoshish, the one that gathered up the wood, something that he did something wrong on Shabbos. He knew that he did something wrong, and he was liable for death. Shenemar, it says on by Shabbos, if you violate Shabbos, Mechal Lehamos Yumas. One who violates Shabbos will surely be killed. Moshe didn't know which punishment will he get. Shenemar, as the verse says, Kilo Porash Ma'yasalo, wasn't exactly clear, wasn't explicit what to do with the guy. That's a Mekoshish. Aval Megadev, the blasphemy, the one who blasphemed, the one who cursed God, Lo Namar Bo Ella, if you look in the verse in Vayikra Chavdal Yud Beis, it just says, Lo Namar Bo Ella Lifrosh. They didn't know what to do with him at all. Meaning, not that they knew it was death, but they didn't know which death. They didn't know what to give the guy who blasphemed God. So the first time this happened, like, what do you do now? So Ella Lifrosh Lahem Al Pi Hashem, Shelo Haya Moshe Yodeh Imhu Ben Misa Kol Iker Imlaf. He wasn't sure if he's liable to death penalty or he's not liable to death penalty.
Didn't have a rule book.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So now, fine. So that's that. So at the end of the day, both Rabbi Nechemia and the rabbis both learn that there's some form of holding a guy back and waiting to see what happens to his to the victim, see what happens to the guy that he punched. However, and they each have their own sources to learn that out from. And at the end of the day, they still have this argument: if you hit a guy with a deathly punch, he gets better than dies. Rabbi Nechemia says you're exempt, and the rabbis say you are going to be liable. You're still considered a murderer. So now, in the verse there, it sounds like there's two places back-to-back psukim that tell you, that imply at least, that you evaluate the guy. So now we're going to go through each one. Why do you have two evaluations? So now, Bish Samal Rabbi Nechemia, according to Rabbi Nechemia, Hainu Diksivi Trei Umdini. It says two evaluations. Chad Amdu Lemisa. One is when the guy was evaluated Lemisa for death, and then he ended up living. Right? That's the case where Rabbi Nechemia holds you're exempt. V'chad Amdu Lemisa Vehekel Mima Shahaya. So one is where the guy, you have to evaluate him, what was it, a deathly punch or not? And the second one was in the event that it was a deathly punch and then the guy improved, you do another evaluation to see how much you have to pay. Yeah. So once again, the first evaluation is you evaluate a guy for death, right? So he's liable to death, and then he leaves Bezdin, and he ends up living. So, yeah. And the second one is where the guy was liable for death, and then he ended up getting better, and then he died again. So you have two times that you're going to evaluate the guy to see what kind of punch it was. But that's only good for Rabbi Nechemia. However, yeah. According to the rabbis, why do you have two evaluations? So one, you evaluate him for death, and you evaluate him as a deathly punch, and he leaves Bezdin as a murderer, but then the guy gets better. So don't think that we're going to kill you because the guy ended up surviving. But v'chad amdu l'chayim umes. That's the first time. Hold on for some reason. Okay, don't know. V'chad amdu l'chayim umes. So, one second. Sorry. If I want you to evaluate him for death, and then the guy ends up living. So another one is in that. It sounds like in that stage when the guy is alive, you punch him, a deathly punch. Then he gets better. So you evaluate him again, and then he dies. So why do you evaluate him again the second time?
They said that the system that he would survive.
So when do you evaluate him? When he's getting better?
First division would survive but die. It says the assailant is not liable. In both cases, it looks like.
Both cases,
They're
okay.
not liable for execution.
I think it sounds like in one case they're saying it was a deadly punch.
Right.
And he survived. And the other one they said it wasn't a deadly punch and he died.
And he died. Ah.
They're wrong on both.
I'll clarify this for Shabbos, but okay. Rabbi Nechemia, amdu l'chaim umes. In the case where you actually evaluated him for it was not a deathly punch, and then the guy died. So for that, Rabbi Nechemia says, I don't need a verse for that. I don't need a verse telling me that when I evaluated him and it was a non-deathly punch, and then he died, that the guy's exempt. And according to the rabbis, I have to evaluate him, and I see what the punch was, and there's a novelty there that if it was not a deathly punch, and then he died, we don't kill you. According to Rabbi Nechemia, I don't need a verse for that, because lo tzarich kraj hari yatzam bezdin zakai. I left the bezdin innocent. So once you leave innocent, the fact that the guy ends up dying afterwards doesn't make me into a murderer. Yeah. So basically, each one has two times that you evaluate. You evaluate the killer and you make him pay, money. So it's two cases where you would have thought the guy should be killed because he gave a deathly punch, or he gave a deathly punch, or in this case, it wasn't a deathly punch, and then the guy died. So in those cases, you only have to pay money, and you don't kill the guy. Okay. Taner Rabbanan Hamakes Chavero. It's also hard phraseology coming up. Taner Rabbanan Hamakes Chavero. A person hits his friend. Ve'amdu l'misa, and you evaluate him. It was a deathly punch. V'chaya, and then he survives. Potrinoso. So the guy's exempt from murder. Amdu l'misa. You evaluate it as a deathly punch. Ve'hekel b'mashahaya, and now he got better from when you first punched him. So now omdino so omit sheni. So now you evaluate him a second time, lemamon. So right now he got better. So now you have to pay for his medical expenses, how much work he's missed. So you have to do another evaluation to see how much money you owe. Okay. If afterwards the guy got worse and dies, so now which evaluation do you go after? So halach achar omed ha'emtzai div Rabbi Nechemia. You did two evaluations. The first time you evaluated him, it was a deathly punch. Then he ended up getting better. Then you evaluated him again right now. Right now he's better, and you want to know how much you have to pay. How much money you have to pay. Says Rabbi Nechemia, you go after the second evaluation, and therefore you're going to exempt the person, and he's not a murderer. The same as in our Mishnah, same exact thing. No, just because you don't go after the second evaluation. Once you evaluated him as a killer, it was a deathly punch, so then the fact that you evaluate him later to see how much money he owes, but that doesn't cancel the first evaluation to determine if he's a murderer, and therefore, if you was he got better, and then worse, the rabbis will tell you, Chama will say that we still consider you a murderer and will kill you. That's one. Tanya Idach, another brisa says, Amdu lemisa. Amdu lemisa, you evaluate him for death. So now, Amdu lemisa, omdin oso l'chaim. So it was a deathly punch, and now you see he's improving. So, since you see he's improving, then you're not going to kill the guy. You're going to evaluate him again and say, oh, you see, he's alive. L'chaim, if you originally said it wasn't a deathly punch, ein omdin oso lemisa. Same thing as earlier. Once you said he was already innocent, it wasn't a deathly punch. The fact that he dies afterwards is not going to be a reason to kill the person. Amdu lemisa vehekel mashahaya. You evaluate him for death, and then he got better. He improved from that status that he was. So omdin oso omet sheni. You evaluate him again lemamon, for money. If after your evaluation of how much money the guy owes now for damaging this person so severely, if afterwards the victim ends up dying, mishalem nezek v'tzar liyorshim, you pay for the damages and the pain, and Rashi says, and for the embarrassment and for the medical expenses. Just didn't list everything. Liyorshim, you pay to the inheritors. So from when do you pay? Ne'emasai mishalem mishasheiko. From that original moment you punched him, you go back and you pay from there. So if you punched him on January 1st and he got better January 15th and then ended up dying February 1st, you end up charging him for the work he missed from January 1st, not from January 15th. Who is this like? The stomach Rabbi Nechemia. That this price is like Rabbi Nechemia, who says if you punch somebody a deathly punch, then he gets better, then he dies, you're exempt for murder and you have to pay financially. The rabbis held no. If you gave a deathly punch, even if afterwards he got better and then died, you go after the first evaluation, and therefore you kill the guy. Okay, sorry, that took longer than expected. So, niskavin, but yeah. Niskavin, okay, now we're going to have a bunch of cases of everyday situations. Niskavin laharagez behema, you want to go kill your animal, and you ended up killing a person. Yeah? V'haragez adam, whoops. Yeah? La'obed kochavim, you tried to kill the idol worshiper, and V'haragez Yisrael. Whoops, and you killed a Jew. Le Nephilim, you tried to kill a Nephil, a stillborn. V'haragez Ben Kayama, and you ended up killing a Ben Kayama, meaning a non-stillborn, viable. Yeah. They ask why it's here. Yeah. Someone points out why it's here. Okay, so yeah. The V'haragez ben kayama pater, exempt from being a murderer. Niskavin lahakoso al maslav, you tried to hit the guy on his waist. V'lo haya ba kedei lahamiso, but you didn't have enough of a punch to hit him in the waist. So, meaning to kill someone by punching him in the waist, you need a really strong punch. So, you intended to punch him by the waist, but you didn't have enough of strength to kill him with that. V'hal chala alibo, and you ended up punching him on the heart. That needs less to kill. Yeah, or alibo, or you tried to kill him by punching him in the heart. Umeis putter. So yeah, sorry, same case. You tried to punch in the waist, and you didn't have enough strength for the waist, but when you hit him in the heart, that was enough to kill the person. Putter. Niskavin lahakoso alibo. Here you tried to hit the guy on the heart. The haya bakadei lahamis, and you had enough to kill him alibo. The holchala al masnav, and you end up hitting him in the waist. V'lo haya bakadei lahamis al masnav umes. You didn't have enough to kill him, and he ended up dying anyways. Okay, that seems like a little bit obvious. If you didn't have enough oomph to punch him, he ended up dying. Okay, so we'll explain in a second. Yeah, time pressure. Niskavein lahakos es gadol. You intended to kill the gadol, the over bar mitzvah. V'lo haya bakadei lahamis as a gadol, but you didn't have enough to punch the gadol, to kill the halchala, and the guy had a good duck, he ducked, and you ended up killing the katan, the younger child. The haya b'kedei lahamis is a katan. For that one, you had enough to kill him. Umeis pater, exempt. Niskavin lahagos is a katan. Haya b'kedei lahamis is a katan. You're trying to punch the katan, the young child, and you had enough to kill him. The halchala al hagadol, and end up punching the older his older brother, let's say, and you didn't have enough oomph to punch him, to kill him with, but he ended up dying. As the other, the mace, Potter, you're exempt. Fine. Aval niskavin lahakos. Now the opposite. Aval niskavin lahakos al masna v'haya b'kei lahamis. You want to punch a guy in the waist, and you had enough to punch him in the waist. V'holchala alibo, and then you missed the waist and him in the heart. Then you're a murderer. Because your punch had enough to kill the guy. Niskavin lahakos l'kala v'haya b'kei lahamis l'kala v'hakala alakatan. You want to punch the adult, and you had enough to kill him, and then you end up killing the katan, the younger child. So then you're going to be chayiv, meis chayiv. Rabbi Shimon says, no. Omer afilu niskavin laharag is that you intended to kill a regular adult, Ruvain, and you ended up killing Shimon, you're going to be exempt. So, two things. The reason, according to Rashi, why you're exempt for all these cases is something called hasra asafik. Before we kill a murderer, we have to warn him. If you do this, you will get killed. And he has to say, I don't care, I'm doing it anyways. Only then does he have a warning. Only with a warning can we bring him to court and execute him. Now, there's cases like these cases called a hasra asafik. You warn him, but you're not sure if it's going to end up in death or not. If you punch, he's about to punch a guy in, he's about to punch the guy in the, let's say, in the killing the animal, and he ends up killing a person, or killing a non-Jew, and then he kills a Jew. So all those cases, it's a hasra asafik. So even though he says, I accept, and I don't care that I'm going to get killed for that, but because we don't know what he's going to punch, which part of the body, which person. So therefore, that's called a hasra asafik. And according to the Mishnah, it's not valid enough of a hasra. It's not a valid enough warning. Yeah, because he might not kill him, right? If you're trying to kill the guy on the waist, but you don't have enough of a punch to hit him to kill him, so you might not kill him. You end up hitting him in the heart, and then he died, but you don't have enough. So therefore, the warnings are considered a hasra asafik. That's one. Number two is Rashi makes clear the rule is you need two things. Tartif, from the Mishnah comes out the rule is you need two. You have to have intention to kill the guy with a deathly punch, and you have to hit him with a deathly punch. You need both of those. You have to have intention and have enough in your punch or whatever your stone or whatever you're using to kill the guy.
Before where the guy dies.
Yeah, it's a full-fledged, yeah.
But you're there in a fight, right?
Yeah, but so then they evaluate and to see if your punch was a deathly punch or not, or the stone you threw, was a whatever large enough stone. I don't know how they do it. You're right. It's hard to know though. Right.
Most cases happen.
Right.
Or secondary too. People get punched, they knock out.
Get a concussion.
Right.
Yeah, that's not what happened. Don't worry. So, okay, says Rabbi Shimon. We'll try to start at least, and we'll get a few lines in. So, Rabbi Shimon is the one that's the strictest one. You have to intend for the guy that you're killing, even if you have enough to kill. You have a gun. You're M16 at the guy. So, and you aim it at Reuben, and he ducks and he kills Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says you're exempt. You have to intend for Reuben and kill Reuben. If not that, then you're exempt. So now, the problem is that Rabbi Shimon said, "I feel it's kind of hargazet pater." He waited after all these cases to the end of the Mishnah to say his statement. So which case is he talking about? The very end of the Mishnah, where you tried to kill a gadol and you killed a katan, or at the beginning of the Mishnah? Rabbi Shimon Ahai. Which case Rabbi Shimon going on? Ilema Aseifa on the end of the Mishnah, where you tried to kill a grown-up kid, and then you end up killing a kid. The rabbis say you're liable, and Rabbi Shimon says you're exempt. So Ilema Aseifa, Rabbi Shimon Poter mi baile. He should have just said one word, Poter. He doesn't have to go restate the whole thing. You intended for him, and you ended up killing him. Just say, Rabbi say chayiv, and you say Poter. You say Poter. But he didn't say that. Ella, he's going all the way back on the Resha. Ella Resha, where you tried to kill this person and you end up killing that person. So Ella Resha niskaven laharag ezeh, niskaven laharag ezeh behema, v'harag es adam. You tried to kill the animal and you end up killing the person. You tried to kill the non-Jew and you end up killing a Jew. You tried to kill the stillborn and you end up killing a viable child. Potter. Implication, but if you did intend to kill one of them and you end up killing the other one, you would be liable according to the rabbis. However, Rabbi Shimon Omer, no, he goes off the implication and he says, "Afilu niskavin laharag gezeh v'harag gezeh pater." If you intended to kill one person and you ended up killing somebody else, you are going to be exempt, right? So in his case, right, according to the rabbis, let's say if you tried to kill Chris, and Chris ducked and the bullet hit Shimon, right, and you killed Shimon, so the rabbis say you're exempt. But if you they say you're exempt. Implication being that if you intended to kill one and you end up killing the other, then you would be liable. 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, meaning only the non-Jew you tried to kill and you didn't kill him and you killed a Jew, you're not liable for. But if it was a Jew, you tried to kill Reuben and you end up killing Shimon, that you would be liable for. That's the implication. On that implication, Rabbi Shimon says no. If you tried to kill Reuben and you end up killing Shimon, so then you're going to be pater. Sorry for the late timing.
Well,